Germany, the country that once powered Europe, is now dragging it toward disaster. Growth has stalled, industry is crumbling, and political instability is rising fast as far-right parties surge and public trust collapses. Since 2020, Germany's economy has flatlined, doing worse than nearly every major EU country. But this isn't just about one country falling behind. What's happening inside Europe's largest economy could trigger a chain reaction far beyond its borders. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, is ringing alarm bells. Finance ministers are holding emergency meetings, and across Germany, workers, businesses, and entire industries are bracing for what comes next. So how did the world's most admired industrial power end up on the brink? And why should every global investor, policymaker, and citizen be watching this collapse unfold? If you thought the 2008 financial crisis was bad, hold on to your seats, because what's brewing in the heart of Europe right now could be far worse. After World War II, Germany was in ruins. Its cities bombed out, its economy obliterated, and its future uncertain. But what followed was one of the greatest economic comebacks in modern history. With help from the Marshall Plan, a new currency, the Deutschmark, and sweeping deregulation, Germany rebuilt fast. Factories roared back to life. Bureaucracy was slashed, and by the 1950s, a shattered nation had become an industrial powerhouse. Economists called it the Wirtschaftswunder, Germany's economic miracle. The secret? High-quality exports, cars, chemicals, machinery, all built on wartime industrial know-how and relentless engineering precision. By 2012, exports made up an eye-popping 46% of Germany's GDP, more than any other major economy. The world didn't just buy German goods, they trusted them. The name Made in Germany became a global badge of quality, but that miracle came with a flaw, because over time, Germany bet it all on one market: China. As China's factories exploded in scale, they turned to Germany for machines, tools, and expertise. As Chinese consumers got richer, they bought German prestige. VW, BMW, and Mercedes made 38% of their sales there. It was a golden era until it blew up in their faces. The heavy dependence on China wrecked Germany's industrial base when COVID messed up global supply chains. But hold on tight, because what happened next reveals a scary weakness that threatens not just Germany, but the entire European economy. What I'm about to tell you is way worse than most experts are willing to admit in public. China hasn't just started to overtake Germany in car manufacturing, they've completely destroyed Germany's century-long dominance. In 2024, China shipped 1.6 million electric vehicles, while Germany only managed 880,000. But here's the jaw-dropping statistic that German officials are desperately trying to hide. 40% of Chinese EVs are now being shipped directly to the European Union, Germany's home turf. And it gets worse. According to industry analysts, Chinese manufacturers like BYD and NIO can produce electric vehicles at 20 to 30% lower costs than their German competitors. That's not just a small advantage, it's an absolute game changer. A 2024 study by the Mercator Institute found that German automakers would need to slash production costs by at least 25% just to remain competitive, a goal that seems impossible given Germany's astronomical energy prices and rigid labor laws. Just as the Dutch were overtaken in shipbuilding by the British centuries ago, the Germans are being humiliatingly outmaneuvered by the Chinese right under their noses. The writing isn't just on the wall, it's in flashing neon lights, and it spells catastrophe for Europe's biggest economy. But the automotive industry collapse is just the first domino to fall. What comes next could send shockwaves through the global financial system in ways we haven't seen since 2008. The breaking point came in 2024 when Volkswagen, Germany's industrial crown jewel, announced plans to shut down factories at home. Let that sink in for a moment. VW, the company that symbolized Germany's post-war economic miracle, is closing German factories. Weak demand for their cars and fierce competition meant that VW had excess capacity of 500,000 vehicles, equivalent to 2 entire factories. After nearly 100,000 workers walked off the job and intense negotiations followed, the union struck a deal to reduce 35,000 jobs and cut billions in costs over the coming years. If you think that sounds bad, wait until you hear what's coming next. This crisis isn't limited to automobile manufacturers. China is outproducing Germany in almost every industrial sector, from machinery to pharmaceuticals. Germany's industrial production fell 4.5% in 2024, while China's grew 5.8%. And Germany's industrial output will continue to face catastrophic pressure due to a demographic time bomb that's not just ticking, it's about to detonate. Germany has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, at a paltry 1.35 children per woman. By 2030, just 5 years from now, an estimated 24% of Germans will be 67 years or older, while the working-age population hemorrhages by 300,000 to 400,000 people every single year. You don't need to be a mathematician to recognize this demographic collapse as a death sentence for the German economy. With fewer workers paying into pension systems and more retirees drawing benefits, Germany is barreling toward fiscal insolvency at breakneck speed. And since Germany is the economic backbone of the Eurozone, this collapse could trigger a continental crisis that makes the Greek debt crisis look like a minor inconvenience. But there's another factor in Germany's economic collapse that makes everything we've discussed so far seem minor by comparison. For years, Germany's energy policy was dead simple: buy cheap Russian gas, shut down nuclear plants, phase out coal, and push renewables no matter what they cost. In 2010, Germany got 22% of all its electricity from nuclear, total electricity production at 633 terawatt-hours, costing about 25 cents per kilowatt hour. Then came Germany's most boneheaded decision in decades. After the Fukushima disaster in 2011, Germany threw logic out the window and decided to shut down its nuclear plants. To make up for the lost energy, Germany signed deals with Russia for cheap natural gas and ramped up costlier renewable sources. The result? Production dropped to 560 terawatt-hours, while costs shot up by 28% to 32 cents per kilowatt-hour. Most Germans just accepted these higher energy bills and deeper ties with Russia until Putin invaded Ukraine and everything went to hell. After the invasion and destruction of Nord Stream 1, energy prices didn't just go up, they absolutely skyrocketed. At their peak in 2022, German natural gas prices were 1,100% higher than in 2020. 1,000%! And if that number doesn't make your jaw drop, what I'm about to tell you will. While natural gas only made up 15% of Germany's electricity, many big manufacturers relied heavily on natural gas for both energy and as an essential raw material for production. As a result, factories didn't just cut back, they shut down completely. Industrial output in energy-intensive sectors collapsed by 11% in 2023, the worst drop in modern German history and a warning sign of the industrial disaster that's now unfolding across the country. The global impact is scary as hell. Germany makes crucial components for supply chains worldwide. As these factories go dark, we're not just looking at a German recession, we're facing a potential global manufacturing crisis that could cripple industries from cars to pharmaceuticals all over the world. The worst example is BASF, the world's largest chemical producer, which got hit with an insane $3.2 billion increase in energy cost in just 1 year. The results have been devastating for the German economy. BASF slashed costs at their main German plant by 500 million euros, cutting production of key chemical products and moving production to other countries. The final nail in Germany's coffin? BASF invested nearly 10 billion euros in a massive new chemical complex. Not in Germany, but in China. The irony is brutal. If Germany hadn't abandoned nuclear and coal to look environmentally virtuous, this industrial exodus would never have happened. Germany's misguided energy policies are literally funding the industrial rise of its biggest competitor. And now, as Germany desperately scrambles to turn the tide, they're facing a terrifying reality. It's not just too late, it's game over. But wait until you hear about the fiscal straitjacket that makes recovery virtually impossible. There's another dimension to Germany's collapse that makes everything we've discussed so far even more troubling. About 19% of German employees work in the manufacturing sector, more than double the percentage in most peer nations. As demand for German products has declined and costs have risen primarily due to energy, there has been increasing pressure on wages and ultimately jobs. Since 2020, real wages in Germany have fallen by 2%, in contrast to a 1.5% increase across the member countries of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, which includes 38 countries. Unfortunately, consumer spending has always lagged behind most peer nations. Germans historically saved at 2 times the rate of Americans, but with recent economic pressures, this has increased to 5 times the American rate. Layer on declining wages, and you have a perfect storm. German consumer spending has stagnated in real terms and remains nearly at the same level as it was in 2015. This downward economic wage cycle continues to place immense pressure on the German economy. One obvious escape route would be to lower taxes or introduce massive stimulus measures, the economic equivalent of emergency defibrillation. But here's the twist that makes Germany's situation truly nightmarish. They've handcuffed themselves with something called the debt brake. In 2009, following the Great Recession, Germany introduced a constitutional mechanism that limits the federal government's structural deficit to a microscopic 0.35% of GDP. Now, fiscal discipline sounds prudent in theory, but 0.35% isn't just strict, it's economic suicide when your country is in freefall. How restrictive is it? Let me put it in stark perspective. The US allows deficits of 6 to 7%. France permits 5.5%. Italy operates at 7.4%, and the UK at 6%. Germany's self-imposed fiscal straitjacket is so extreme it would be laughable if it weren't so catastrophic. The result is that Germany has completely paralyzed its ability to invest strategically, stimulate growth, or attract foreign investment precisely when it needs these tools more desperately. It's like watching a drowning person refuse a life jacket because they're worried about getting wet. And the consequences aren't just devastating for Germany, they threaten the entire European financial system. Let's break down what this means in practical terms. Firstly, due to years of chronic underinvestment, Germany's infrastructure is falling apart. In 2024, Germany spent just 1.5% of GDP on infrastructure compared to the high-income country average of 2.7%. The real-world impact is becoming impossible to ignore. A 2024 assessment by the German Engineering Association found that 35% of the country's bridges need urgent repairs, while 30% of municipal water systems are critically outdated. In September 2024, the collapse of the Karl-Brücke Bridge in Dresden, a critical east-west transportation link, sent shockwaves through the country. The bridge had been flagged for repairs for over a decade, but funding was repeatedly delayed due to budget constraints. Even Germany's famous Autobahn network, once the envy of the world, is deteriorating at an alarming rate. According to a 2024 report by ADAC, Germany's largest automobile club, about 45% of Autobahns now require significant repairs, with average transit times increasing by 17% since 2020 due to construction bottlenecks and speed restrictions on damaged sections. What makes this worse is the fact that Germany relies more heavily on exports than both the US and France. A crumbling infrastructure doesn't exactly scream world-class supply chain, and without that, attracting major investment becomes a tough sell. The second issue is that the debt brake makes it nearly impossible for Germany to attract businesses with competitive tax policies. Lowering taxes would breach the debt brake and is therefore off the table. But here's the thing, Germany desperately needs to lower its taxes. The average employment tax wage is 48% compared to the OECD average of 35%. Corporate taxes are around 30% compared to the OECD average of 23.8%. And capital gains tax is a flat 26.4%, which is above the United States' maximum capital gains tax rate on those with income over $518,000. The real-world impact? A mass exodus of startups and scale-ups. Munich-based fintech Payfront, once hailed as Germany's answer to Stripe, relocated its headquarters to Amsterdam in late 2024, taking 450 high-paying jobs with it. CEO Marcus Hellman didn't mince words. Germany's tax environment made growth impossible. We were spending more on compliance than on innovation. Similarly, promising AI startup DeepSense abandoned its Berlin offices for Zurich in early 2025, with founder Lena Muller lamenting, "We didn't want to leave, but when Swiss authorities offered us a 10-year tax holiday and streamlined regulatory approvals, the decision made itself." Even established mid-sized companies, the famed Mittelstand that forms the backbone of German industry, are increasingly shifting operations abroad. A 2024 survey by the German Chamber of Commerce found that 43% of Mittelstand companies had either already relocated some operations or were actively planning to do so within the next 2 years. You might be thinking that Germany could simply break the debt brake. However, this would require a constitutional amendment, which is nearly impossible to achieve in the current political climate. Overall, Germany has taken fiscal conservatism beyond extreme and into the realm of economic self-destruction, potentially crippling their economy not just for years, but for generations. Here's the most terrifying part. As Germany's economy spirals downward, it could trigger a domino effect across the Eurozone. Germany is Europe's largest economy and financial guarantor for weaker EU members. If Germany falters, who will backstop countries like Italy, Spain, or Greece during the next crisis? The entire European monetary union could unravel, triggering currency collapses, sovereign defaults, and banking failures that would make the 2008 financial crisis look like a minor correction. This isn't just theoretical doomsaying. Multiple financial analyses, including a recent report from Deutsche Bank Research, have highlighted the potential contagion risk from Germany's economic troubles to the broader European financial system. The fact that contingency preparations are being discussed speaks volumes about the severity of the situation. But if you thought Germany's problems ended with fiscal policy, brace yourself. The most shocking aspect of Germany's decline, one that virtually guarantees its continued downfall, is yet to come. Germany has become astonishingly, almost unbelievably hostile to entrepreneurs and capital investments. High taxes, high wages, and astronomical energy costs would be bad enough, but the final blow is a confusing mess of rules and paperwork that's so complicated even Kafka would be shocked. Starting a business in Germany takes more than a month of bureaucratic purgatory, whereas in the United States it takes just a few days. For special projects like wind farms, permits take an excruciating 5 to 6 years to get approved, while in Texas or China, the same approvals can be obtained in less than a year. In an age where technological innovation moves at lightning speed, Germany is still operating at a glacial pace. The practical consequences are mind-boggling. Take the case of Hans Weber, an entrepreneur who tried to launch a solar panel installation business in Bavaria in 2024. "I spent 9 months just getting the permits," he told business magazine Wirtschaftswoche. "By the time I could actually start operations, 2 competitors from Austria had already captured the market. They incorporated in Vienna in 1 week." Or consider Berlin's new Brandenburg Airport, which became a global laughingstock when it opened in 2020, 9 years behind schedule and more than 4 billion euros over budget. The project was crippled by over 550,000 identified defects and required approvals from 52 different governmental agencies. This isn't just incompetence, it's institutionalized inefficiency on a scale that defies belief. Germany's toxic love affair with bureaucracy can be traced back through its history, with a rigid legal structure dating back to the Prussian administrative system. After the trauma of World War II, Germany placed too much emphasis on downside protection that it has strangled its ability to adapt, innovate, or even simply get things done. This has bred a culture of paralyzing conservatism that is perfectly captured by the German saying, "Caution is better than regret." But what happens when excessive caution itself becomes the greatest regret? Germany's about to find out. Its legal system is pathologically risk-averse. Its financial system is hostile to venture capital, and its business culture treats innovation like a dangerous foreign concept. In the global race for technological supremacy, Germany isn't just falling behind. It's barely on the track, and as AI, quantum computing, and biotechnology reshape the global economy, Germany's bureaucratic paralysis virtually guarantees its irrelevance in the industries of tomorrow. The consequences are becoming painfully obvious. While the rest of the world charges ahead with innovation and agility, Germany is falling dangerously behind. Once the industrial engine of Europe, its corporate giants are now struggling just to keep pace. American startups are out-innovating them. Chinese tech firms are outscaling them. Even smaller European economies are pulling ahead. And it's not just about lost market share, it's about lost people. Young Germans with entrepreneurial ambition are leaving in droves. They're building companies in more agile, investor-friendly countries, and they're not coming back. A 2024 survey by the German Startups Association revealed that over 67% of German tech founders are considering moving their businesses abroad. This isn't just the talent drain, it's an economic self-destruction in slow motion. And it's making Germany's aging population crisis even worse. But the impact doesn't stop at Germany's borders. The rest of Europe is already feeling the tremors. Banks across the continent, especially in France and Italy, have massive exposure to German industry. According to a leaked ECB stress test obtained by the Financial Times in January 2025, a deep German recession could trigger cash flow crises in up to 7 Eurozone banks. And the warning signs are here. In early 2025, the euro hit its lowest level in 2 years against the dollar. It's a red flag for southern European economies that rely on imports and are already fighting inflation. A weaker euro makes everything worse and could be the final push into a regional economic crisis. Given these challenges, the outlook for Germany appears not just bleak, but potentially dire. The critical question now is, where does Germany go from here? The combination of collapsing industrial competitiveness, crippling energy insecurity, demographic freefall, paralyzing fiscal straitjackets, and suffocating bureaucratic overreach has created not just a perfect storm, but an economic doomsday machine that threatens to permanently obliterate Germany's status as a global economic power. What's truly terrifying is that virtually all of these catastrophic problems are self-inflicted wounds. Germany's reckless abandonment of nuclear energy, its naive over-reliance on exports to China, its pathological fiscal conservatism, and its bureaucratic strangulation were all deliberate policy choices made by German leaders. And now those disastrous choices are coming home to roost with potentially apocalyptic consequences that extend far beyond Germany's borders. According to a 2025 analysis by the European Systemic Risk Board, a severe German recession could reduce Eurozone GDP by up to 4% and potentially trigger sovereign debt crises in multiple member states. The global ripple effects would be devastating, particularly for emerging economies dependent on European markets and financial systems. What we're witnessing isn't just a temporary downturn or a typical recession. It's potentially the beginning of Germany's permanent economic demise as a global power. Without immediate, radical, and painful changes to its economic model, energy policy, fiscal rules, and bureaucratic systems, Germany risks becoming not just the sick man of Europe temporarily, but a chronic economic invalid with declining global relevance. The European Central Bank is already wargaming scenarios for a German economic collapse, including emergency liquidity provisions for banking systems across the Eurozone. That's how serious financial authorities consider this threat. The existential question now is whether German leaders have the courage and vision to make the extraordinarily difficult choices needed to reverse course before it's too late. Based on their abysmal track record so far, the outlook isn't just unpromising, it's downright nightmarish. But what do you think? Is there any hope for Germany to turn things around? Or are we witnessing the beginning of an economic collapse that could reshape the global order? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our video on China's collapse into poverty is worse than you think. And make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.